I got more to talk about in you know, just a little more of my take to present to you guys here. Given everything we know now from this footage and from that new updated synopsis, and I just want to talk a minute about how this applies to the larger franchise and this idea of, be it a copycat Michael Myers killer, um, or maybe just somebody having a little too much, arguably inappropriate fun, um, dressing up as Michael Myers. This is an idea that has circled around and within this franchise for decades. Um, you can go back to Halloween 2, 1981, and Ben Tramer. And of course, horrible case of mistaken identity there. Just, a harmless, innocent kid dressed in a costume very much like that Michael Myers is wearing, and he's tragically killed. And of course, Laurie had a crush on him, and of course, he got a loving reference in Halloween Kills. Now, this timeline, cuts out the events of Halloween 2. So, will we see Ben Tramer show up in this film? That's something, personally, I am hoping for. After his shout out in Halloween Kills, yeah, I've said before, regular viewers know this, the two main things I've requested of the filmmakers, and I'll just say I've predicted. That way, if it happens, I'll say, yeah, you heard it here first. But one is Ben Tramer in the movie, and Halloween Ends. Let's have Ben. Justice for Ben Tramer, right? Two is I want to hear the Silver Shamrock jingle. It could be on TV. It could be on the radio, playing through that radio tower that we've heard so much about, but I don't see really any significant or sign of in this trailer, at least. But I want to hear that at some point. It could be a modern 2022 version of it. It doesn't have to sound very much like the old version. It doesn't even necessarily have to be set to the old London Bridge tune like the old one, but come on. Silver Shamrock exists. The corporation's there in this universe. It only makes sense. And this being the third film in this particular trilogy. So those things I'd love to see. But again, back to mistaken identities, copycats, and other people dressed as Michael Myers. There was Ben Tramer. We might see Ben Tramer again in this film. I hope we do. But that's far from the only time that this franchise has explored the idea that, other people might dress up as Michael Myers. And it might confuse people. It might purposely confuse people sometimes. If you remember in Halloween 4, this was explored just briefly, but in one of that film's best scenes, I think. Early on, Loomis and the sheriff, they're driving around, they're looking for Michael, they see him, and then it's one of the coolest scenes because then there's Michael over there, and then there's another Michael. And you got to go back to 1988. If you've never seen this film before and you're watching it for the first time, for a few seconds there's the very real possibility that there's more than one person out there putting on this mask doing these killings. And then if that's the reality, and it's not all about the shape, this one individual, this one human person named Michael Myers, as Laurie, when she's being interviewed, and Dana, the investigative journalist, says in 2018. So, there's that possibility for albeit a few seconds. But, for those few seconds, it's very real that some innocent people are about to get shot down by law enforcement. In Halloween 5, we've got a little bit of that again. We've got the character of Spitz. If you remember, he's actually wearing a full Michael Myers costume. Okay? This is after Michael has killed Judith in this timeline. This is after the events of Halloween and Halloween 2 and now Halloween 4 in 88. This is a year later, and he's still out there. They're at the barn Halloween party, and Spitz is dressed as Michael playing around. Remember the goofy cops? They're kind of fooled by him for a second, and then, and then Michael follows him into the bar. You know, he has that scene with Samantha and everything. But again, this is somebody putting on the costume, in this case, you know, harmlessly, not trying to be a copycat killer or impersonate Michael, but just making light of the whole thing as young, dumb teenagers would do in real life. In some circumstances, some of them would, in circumstances like this. Um, this was explored probably more than ever, more infamously than ever, though, in Halloween Resurrection, which came out 20 years ago, this month actually, when the great Busta Rhymes had his very memorable scene, not just wearing a Michael Myers mask, but dressed in full Michael Myers costume, face to face with the Michael Myers in that film, played by Brad Loree. And you know, he goes on to talk a bunch of smack to Michael in that scene. And again, this is somebody in a universe where very screen accurate, I guess you could say, life accurate and in universe accurate, what the term would be in that universe. Myers costumes are available and exist and have happened. And of course, this was taken even another level in HK with the whole mistaken identity aspect of Trivoli. But here's the part that I don't think all of you may know, or if you're a longtime reader of our website, HalloweenDailyNews.com, and you've been with us for many, many years, then you might remember what I'm about to talk about. But I got a feeling that some of you that have joined us more recently in recent years, and even since 2018, you might not be familiar with this part of the tie-in to possibly this whole Corey Cunningham, this whole possible copycat Michael Myers idea. And again, if you don't, I mean, I don't know that any of this has anything to do with this film, but I know it has to do with this franchise, and that similar ideas to what may be happening in this film have been around and have been very close to being put on screen before. And most notably, I am talking about Halloween H20. Not what you see in the film, but what you don't see, what you almost saw. And for the full details of this, you have to read my interview with Adam Hann-Byrd. If you don't know who Adam Hann-Byrd is, he played the character of Charlie in Halloween H20. Now, I've put the link to my interview with Adam in the description of this video. So when we're done here, you can go and check it out. This interview was conducted and published back in the summer of 2014. And Adam played Charlie. You'll remember, Charlie has a memorable encounter with Michael Myers as he is going to find a corkscrew so he and his girlfriend can, you know, pop some champagne on Halloween and have some fun. I know. Your brain's starting to remember now his death scene, and it's starting to ring some bells to something that we saw in that trailer a minute ago, but it gets better. It gets better. Check this out. When I interviewed Adam, who is an awesome dude, by the way, back in 2014, again, check it out when we're done here. I'm not going to read you the whole interview. I'm not going to tell you about the whole interview, but I'm going to tell you a few Cliff's Notes right now. Adam Hann-Byrd revealed that when he originally was in talks to join the film, the script that he originally read was quite different than that which was ultimately filmed. Adam Hann-Byrd revealed to me in 2014 in our exclusive interview that originally, when the script came his way, he was most excited because in the original draft that he received, his character, Charlie, was actually a bad guy, in his words. I know. You're saying what? This is what Adam told me in 2014. He said, quote, he, meaning Charlie, was a copycat killer who was copying Michael Myers and wreaking havoc at the boarding school, meaning the boarding school where Laurie Strode, now going by the name of Carrie Tate, worked. Adam goes on to explain, quote, then, of course, in the end, the real Michael Myers comes and exacts revenge upon him. And Adam went on to tell me how he was totally pumped to play this version of the character, who, if you've seen the movie, it would have been, I imagine, very much like the Charlie we see in the film until Act 3, where it would have been this kind of Scream type twist, which again, with H2O's ties to Scream creator Kevin Williamson, and also coming out in the late 90s, where Scream was the dominant force in genre film. All of this made perfect sense when he revealed this to me in 2014, and it makes perfect sense now, and what would have been just a wild way to go. He did end up getting the role of Charlie, but the role of Charlie ended up being changed a little bit, and they didn't end up going that route. But in case you're wondering, Adam did describe what would have been his big reveal scene. Okay. Now, again, I'm not suggesting that any of this is going to play out like this in Halloween Ends. But I am saying that if anything close to this plays out in Halloween Ends, it's not the first time the idea has circled within this franchise, specifically within this franchise in a film involving the character of Laurie Strode. The way he was going to reveal himself as the killer would have been, according to Adam Hann-Byrd, because Charlie is Josh Hartnett's character's roommate, and in that original script, and they would have been hanging out in the dorm room, and Charlie was going to start singing the Oscar Mayer Wiener song, and he would spell Oscar like in the old commercials, and then he would start to spell the Meyer, like as in the Oscar Mayer hot dog wieners, and the brand spells it Mayer, but Charlie, being the jokester that he is, would have sung it, and when he got to that point, he would have spelled it Myers, and that would have been the big reveal. Pretty wild idea, and pretty interesting alternate setup for what would have been a wild third act in some alternate universe of Halloween H2O. And here's one more thing that made me think of my interview with Adam from 2014, talking H2O. Because if you've seen the movie, you know that, his character Charlie, he goes, spoilers if you haven't seen H2O, he goes to get the corkscrew, and it falls in a garbage disposal, in the sink. And so he's got to reach his hand in there and try to get it. And this is a really tense thing, because you think, like Michael's just going to come and flip the thing on. And he ends up getting it out, and that not happening. And then he turns around, and there's his encounter with Michael. And you never, his death is off screen. They cut to the carnage later. Well, Adam told me in this interview that And again, I put a link in the description below, but he explained to me that at one point, Jamie Lee Curtis actually came up to him at lunch and said that he and director Steve Miner, director of Friday the 13th, 2 and 3, had been talking for hours the night before about a fun way to kill Charlie. And they had come up with sticking his hand down the garbage compactor. And he was all for it. He wanted to chop it off and make it real nasty. And then they explained that no, we actually want to do that, and we're going to build a suspenseful moment, but then you're going to make it out of that, and you'll face an even worse fate with Michael Myers. But I can't help but thinking now, knowing all of that, and seeing that part of this climactic battle with Laurie Strode and Michael Myers is going to involve this garbage compactor. It's clear that what is Jamie Lee Curtis most scared of? What scares her more than anything in the world, if you ask me, is having your hand go into a garbage compactor. She has had this on her mind for a scene since 1998. You know what I mean? And it's finally here, and now it's happening to Laurie Strode, and it's Michael actually attempting to try to do it. So I thought that was a pretty insane and funny wraparound, because there are other similarities. There have been obviously some similarities to Halloween H20 and that timeline, and specifically Halloween 2018, and to a larger extent this timeline. But check out that interview with Adam when you get a chance. It's a fun one. That and so many other interviews we've done over the last 10 years with the cast and crew of these films, not just these recent films, tons of them as well, but all 13 films over the last 44 years. You can find all of those interviews and all of our exclusive interviews anytime at HalloweenDailyNews.com. And all you got to do is just click on the interviews tab, and that will take you to nothing but exclusive interviews, and you can find Adams and so many more. Or much quicker, after we're done here in just a few minutes, you can hit that link in the description of this video and check out that interview with Adam. It's really pretty interesting. Now, again, I'm not saying that any of that stuff is going to happen in HNs, but I'm not saying that something similar is not in the works, because from everything we know now, it definitely sounds like similar ideas as to what was circling around this franchise in 1998 are circling this franchise again. We've heard that this movie is going to be different. It's going to be a little weird. It's going to be. I think we're they're preparing us for that a little bit with this Corey character. I think that is the big headline for me, is that we have got an all new character to this franchise that all we know about is this one sentence: accused of killing a boy he was babysitting. I mean, is he going to say, I didn't kill him, Michael Myers killed him? Is he going to say, I did kill him and a voice in my head told me to? What? I don't know any of that yet, but it's damn intriguing and I think exciting. I've said before, give me something a little different, a little out there. I'm always a champion for the outsiders, for the underdogs, for the season of the witches, and in Rob Zombie Halloween films, I always champion the weirdos and the often unloved. So bring it on. Let's do something a little bit different here. All right. So that's pretty much my take on everything at this point. That's where we are. And that's some of my immediate thoughts. I'll have plenty more tomorrow and the next day, and and I'll be back on here to talk about them. But now I turn it over to you. I want to hear what you thought about the trailer. What do you think about my take on all this? Am I way off? Do you agree with any of my thoughts? Give me your opinions in the comments below. And of course, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of our ongoing coverage of Halloween Ends and everything Michael Myers and everything Halloween 2022. So much happening here. I'm Matt Arts for Halloween Daily News. Thank you for watching.